Electricast.
Well, hello everybody. Guess who's back? Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. My name is Hollywood Rayshawn Buchanan with my guy DK Sizzle, and this is Missing the Point. So if this is your first time listening to us, we thank you for tuning in. You can find us on YouTube and anywhere else that you find your podcast. So Dave, man, it's good to see you, man. You know, we got a chance to catch up before we came on, air. You almost died. I was in places that I shouldn't have been or didn't really want to be, but hey, here we are.
We made it.
Yeah, you ready to talk? Yeah, we made it, and we're back talking what we love the most, which is C's. And just a quick note before we get into this. Yes, for those that were listening to our NFL shows throughout the year, at the end of the year, our very own DK Sizzle called that the tush push may be something that gets brought up by live committee, excuse me, if I could talk. And, that's not been brought up. So, it was forecasted here first. So, I wanted to give you those props there. Cause like I said, I'm sure someone else will try to take it. But like I said, for those that listen to us know that it came out of your mouth first here. So I wanted to put that out.
Because it was the Packers complaining. I fucking knew they would get their way because they fucking always do. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's for sure going to happen, but it just it looks like it.
We'll see how it unfolds. But speaking of getting their way, the Celtics are beginning their way. The last few months, man, they have right now they've currently won 8 in a row. That's in jeopardy right now as they're down to Memphis as we record this. But they're 23-4 since January 30th. And, around this time last year, they were coming up a 23-5 stretch on their way to going 64-18. So, I'll just let, the floor is yours, man. Just what has been the most impressive thing to you during the stretch overall?
I'll save the most impressive thing because I know on your agenda you have a Kristaps Porzingis segment, so I know we're going to come to him and sort of dedicate time to what he's bringing to the table and how important he's going to be come playoff time. So what I will say is just as an overall, since you and I haven't really sat down to talk about the C's in forever, I'll do an overview. Do you feel like, not to respond to your question with a question, but do you feel like their offense is more dynamic all of a sudden? It seems to me like questions aside of the sort of autopilot nature of this team now that they're a veteran basketball team, I think we're all a little calmer in the regular season with where these guys are, the fact that they're champions. This is going to be the repeat year if all goes according to plan. I think we're all a little calmer in the regular season because we sort of know we know their quirks. We know what it looks like when they're sort of on, I wouldn't call it autopilot, but not leaving third gear. And because we know these players so well, like the core group, we've discussed ad nauseum. We've seen them for their entire growth, really. It's harder to notice kind of massive changes because we watch it so closely, but I do feel like we fell a little bit out of love with the kind of volume threes to a certain extent over the course of this run. Obviously we're still a prolific 3-point shooting team. Obviously it's still the cornerstone of our game. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that everybody is starting to play a little bit looser offensively, and I think that we've been a little bit more dynamic around the basket. And most of all I've seen, and I'll come back to this later when we talk at length with Porzingis, but most of all I've seen movement finally come back into the offense, because I think that's the thing that we really always smash our head against the wall with this Celtics team since Tatum's rookie year. We've been saying this where it's please just move more off the ball. Don't just wait in your spot to try to get a shot up. It's so, for the viewer, we're the ones who suffer when that happens, and you and I have talked about that at length. And now it just feels like, I don't know if it's sports science. I don't know if it's how much Missoula really doesn't give a fuck about giving guys minutes at certain times. I mean, there's dudes down the bench that I actually am surprised aren't getting more minutes, some of the new recruits. But you see guys out there where you're like, okay, cool. I guess he's getting some play time. We're resting 2 guys a night and winning, going on 8 game winning streaks. So you're okay, great. Like everyone's playing a little bit looser. We're thinking about the sports science, and really, we're really able to run into the playoffs well now. Because it seems deliberate. The way that they rest, the way that the times that they don't rest, the guys that do play, you know, I just think the rotations are really dialed in. The when guys are getting rest, everybody just looks fresher on a night to night basis. Like when you see Al Horford hit the court these days, you're just sort of like, okay, great. Like it already happened tonight. It was like, okay, yeah, I see what we're doing with the starting five. We bring Al in, great. Like that's great. Those are the kind of minutes that I want to see on those ancient legs in context. So, and then, Jaylen Brown's not playing tonight, and it just seems sort of par for the course with how we sort of load manage across the course of this regular season. And they just seem, I think they're one of maybe 3, maybe 4 teams you could make a case for in the NBA that just seem really confident in what they're doing. Like they just seem to have, I mean, I forgive the cliche, Ray, but there does seem to just be a winning culture there now, where everybody just seems a little bit more calm, a little bit steadier on the trigger, and it has started to allow for less of the kind of idiosyncrasies that we always bemoan with this team, which is like they let games get on top of them sometimes. They let plucky teams come out and punch them in the mouth sometimes. They fall in love, all this stuff. It feels like it's happening less, but also the stakes are less when it does seem to happen because they're like, we'll be fine. Like they have a very we'll be fine attitude about a lot of things. Makes me feel better. I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's everything that was said was spot on. I think that the biggest thing for me has been the ball movement, right?
Yeah.
And also we'll get into some other, details as the show progresses, but I think that the ball movement for sure has been something that has stood out because, like you said, shooting 65 threes in the game is insane. I don't care if you made 35 of them. I don't care.
I know.
Once again, it's cool. It's cool
It's
to
also
see
not
it.
fun to watch. I have to say, like
Right.
I like
Right. It's not well.
it's cool to watch them win. It is cool to watch them win, but
Right.
like, and like the old sort of Brad Stevens like all perimeter passes ball movement is not really what you're talking about, right? Like there's a lot more inside out game happening, and I know I keep teasing Porzingis because I think he's a really really big part of that, but also like Tatum's game, we've been noting over the course of the last, I'd say, correct me if I'm wrong, I'd say over the last 3 seasons, you and I have been like hitting the buzzer of like Tatum's playmaking, Tatum's playmaking, Tatum's playmaking.
Yeah.
And it's become
Yeah.
this sort of inside out game that I think is like, that's the ball movement we've always wanted to see. Like you and I talked to fucking Cedric Maxwell on this podcast about that specific thing, and he agreed with
Right.
us. So like, we're not crazy. And then right after
And
we have that magical conversation.
Side note about that, I ran into him at TD.
Friend of the show.
I think,
You're
friend
bumping
of the show
into him.
after the first episode of the Celtic City, and he's like, you might want to have me come back on so I can fact check some of the stuff that actually is being said. I was like,
I love that.
absolutely.
Oh, I love
was
that.
like, I said, as soon as it's over, I said we would absolutely have to.
That would be amazing.
Not a problem.
That would be amazing.
I said yes. I said, and my mom like, you don't never have to ask. Like
we just big market tease for the listeners. We have a conceptual show planned on basically a reaction to that documentary as a show. So once we've all consumed all the content, maybe Cedric can come on and be part of the be part of the breakdown of the documentary, because would love to have a firsthand source. I mean, you can't beat that.
Not
sorry,
at all.
I derailed us with that mention, but yeah.
No,
I mean,
when you brought it up, it made me think about that. But
love that.
Yeah, no, I mean that. But I think that's what we as fans saw being the next evolution of not just Jayson Tatum's game, but Jaylen Brown's game as well. And I've seen a stat on Twitter recently about how both of their assist levels have jumped each year the last few seasons. And that's the thing, because it's one thing to know that you could go get a bucket anytime you want, right? Like that's
I mean, Tatum's been that way for his whole career,
right.
essentially. So
yeah, right, no, right. So it's like, so when you know that, cool. But it's something I said, excuse me, on here before. The goal is not for Tatum to score, or Brown to score, Porzingis to score, or Holiday, or whoever to score. The goal is for the Boston Celtics to score. So when that mindset is adopted across the board, then that's what you see the result ended up being. So their ball movement has been awesome. The cuts to the basket have been great.
hell yeah, they have. Dude.
And once again,
I mean, like
yeah,
really
and once again,
dynamic off the ball movement.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's been awesome to
Yeah.
see. So that's where, they become unguardable. And the thing is, you shooting the 63s or even like the 45 threes or more, right? Like you're giving opponents, you're bailing them out essentially. You're bailing them out because
Yeah.
if it's able to shoot, it's just a make or miss. If it goes in, cool, whatever. And I
They
get it.
can live with it.
Three
They
is
can
more.
like you because you're just like, all right, well, if we're gonna get killed tonight, if everything's gonna go Pleasantville into the fucking hoop, then whatever, you can live with that. If they're not going in, we can live with that too. It's like it's shots from outside the box. It's just like, well, there's nothing. Like yeah, you want to like hammer perimeter defense on a team that does that. But I agree with you that to a certain extent, you're sort of that other team can have the attitude of like, well, whatever. Like, across the 7 game series, maybe we can hope they don't shoot like that for 4 games. You know?
Right. And even you think about, I mean, just granted, this opponent wasn't someone to write home about, but I think about the Portland game they had a couple weeks ago out there, right? Like Portland hit 19 threes and lost by double digits. That's wild.
Yeah.
Wow. Man, 19 threes. Spot double. Like that's the NBA that we're in. Excuse me, right now. Like there was a time when 19 threes, you might have lost by 30. Like that's just the
Because
nature
the
of
volume's gone up.
even
It's
12.
Kobe
But
in his last season. It's like the volume's gone up. So like the stats are all skewed now because the volume's so crazy.
yeah, it's the same. It's the same. So I mean, once again, I'm here for it on certain nights, but it's just like I said, I just want balance. I just want balance. Like and now they're getting back to more of a balance. And the word balance is key here because the person we talk about next has brought a lot of balance to the backup center position. And I'm talking none other than Uncle Luke, not of the Two Live crew, but of the Boston Celtics crew. Luke Kornet, man, has he changed? Your thought process on him? Because I know, like I said, we were lamenting that we wanted another backup big and someone that was more talented at that spot, but just speak to just where you're at with him now as a backup big and just what has impressed you about this run that he's been on?
I mean, I just love a double double like that with like with the kind of stat line that he produced the other night. Like it's obviously going to change my mind in a certain direction, right? Because I I love that kind of play from a role player like Luke Cornett. That being said, does it make me happy when I see stuff like that in the regular season? Of course. That being said, like we have a lot of options, I think, to be dynamic size wise. The way that we get rebounds isn't necessarily running through Luke Cornett City in a high stakes playoff situation. I'm more inclined to believe that he could make an impact in one playoff game. Now, is that fair? I'm more inclined to believe that like
Oh, that's
we
just
could
yeah.
see something in another team in the second round where you're playing, forget it, the first round we're going to be the 2 seed, right? So in the 2 seed, what happens to the 2 seed in both conferences every single year? You end up playing like the scrappy veteran team, right? You end up playing that like 7 seed that you're just like, oh fuck, this is such an annoying like opening bell, right? So we're going to get saddled with one of those. It's to a lesser extent in the East. It's gonna happen in the West because of how tight everything is over there. So whoever's 2 is almost this, on a similar quality level to the 7 seed over there because of how close all the games are. People are writing off the Rockets over there. I wouldn't. Maybe it's the Ime Udoka of it all, but like I wouldn't. The way that they're playing, the team we're playing tonight, like there's a lot of teams you wouldn't want to see over there in the West.
Right.
So when you have a team like that, you're gonna need to come into a reaction game that you've lost, right? So you're gonna choke one at home of the first 2 or something like that's going to happen with this C's team because we're like better on the road. We're all going to be really confident going into game 3 because we're going on the road. And that's going to be like a situation where a Luke Cornett, because they saw something, a Luke Cornett can go stand on a guy for the entirety of the night and outwork him, bump him, like that. Like, I mean, honestly, the crazy thing is like the team I would think, I mean, Giannis, you can't really put Luke Cornett on, right? But as a body to throw at a large superstar, we could maybe do something with Joker if we see them like in this mad hypothetical in the finals where it's like, okay, Luke Kornet's just gonna like fucking bother him. Like the way that they got taken out in the West last year was that it was throwing bodies at him of guys that like could never do anything about him one on one. But because
Right.
the quality of the bigs was just a little bit higher for that Timberwolves team, they were able to just kind of keep a cap on him and able to like eke out that series. So if we were to see them in this, very hypothetical situation, yeah, a Luke Kornet, great. Go out there, just try to beat him up, try to stay with him, like just try to be a rim protector in the old school way that we always sort of, envision Time Lord being, that it just never really came to fruition on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
You can play double bigs with him. Like it's so situational that like I'm willing to believe he can play an important role in one very specific situation, but is he going to be an impact player across like an entire playoff run with the players that we have? If we're all healthy, like knock on wood, fingers crossed, then no, I don't think so. No.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair. I mean, I think obviously, playoffs will always come down to matchups and styles always
Yeah.
make fights. So
And
that's
Missoula's very like that, so I'm hesitant to write off Kornet at least playing meaningful minutes because he's very
right,
like that. He's very matchup based. He's very what's the other team doing, which I like to a
right.
certain extent, to be honest. But
Yeah, I think in a series versus Cleveland, we see a lot of Cornette. I think in a series versus Atlanta, we see a lot of Cornette, and even against Orlando, we'll get into that later on about what their matchup could be in the first round. Um, but yeah, I mean, what he's been able to do, just rebounding wise, I forget about the scoring is always a plus, but getting the offensive rebounding, and there was a play he made a few games ago where he, they analytics calls it a paint touch, and they threw it to him in the paint. Hauser sees that he catches it. Hauser builds to the corner. Without before he gets to the ground, it's already his mind is already say, okay, I'm gonna instead of me catching it, go down and maybe get hit on the arm. I'm on the fly. I'm gonna hit Sam Hauser in the corner, knock down three, timeout. Like it was like that wasn't happening last year. It wasn't happening the year before. He's been here 4 or 5 years now. Like that wasn't happening when he first got here. So to see the development they've done with him and guys like Shireman and other guys that have come through here, like that's been huge. So I love what I've seen from him. Once again, we were clamoring for him to not be on the court at times. Last year, even at times this year, right? Because everyone was kind of on the Nemias Cater train, and now Nemias Cater has been someone that's fallen off. Or I mean, I would say fallen out of favor, but he just hasn't found a favorable matchup at this time. He may very well come back into the picture at some point as the season closes, or at some point in the playoffs, depending on the matchups, or if you need 6 fouls, he's another able body. So, but needless to say, Kornet's been awesome as of late, and I love how he's being used. I love his intensity down there, and he also keeps things loose too. Like you need a guy like that on the team, and he's been nothing short of awesome in every category, lately. So I hope that he keeps it up
what's up with
because,
Torrey
like I
Craig
said,
on that note? Can I ask you
say
that
again.
just as a brief aside? What's up with Torrey Craig on that note, as far as like keeping guys loose on the bench,
Um, I
being a good like
I think
bench guy, but it's like can't he play real minute? I just sort of thought maybe I thought he had more that when we got him
yeah, no,
than
I,
he
I
actually
did
does.
I did too. I did too. I thought that. I mean, he seems to still fit in, like on like they seem like he's got along with them on the
Yeah,
bench, which is
which
cool.
is
I mean,
great.
and
Yeah,
that's needed. But it's like, excuse me, I think we were hoping for a James Posey type role, which
yeah.
that was a ceiling. It wasn't that didn't mean he was going to be James Posey,
Maybe I was
but
just thinking of
hoping.
like the Phoenix version of him. Still, has it been that long?
Yeah. Which and maybe that moment still comes, right? I think that what we've seen with Joe is a trust guy,
Yeah,
and he would not put you out there unless he trusts you in certain situations. So that's why we've seen Baylor Scheinman now get the call more
which is
times than
weird.
not lately. Besides,
I have to say,
the hustle's been there.
yeah.
He talk about play. He's a really good playmaker, right? And then he's another weapon from the three. So he's doing everything that they like being done, and he's been in the program all year. So because
Hmm.
he's been in the program all, I think that's where Joe is helping. I think Torrey Craig in their minds was just extra insurance, and that's fine, right? Because once again, he still very well may have a moment in the playoffs where you're like, okay, that's why he was brought here, and
Yeah,
I'm
it
totally fine with
honestly
that. So, I,
it's the kind of late season pickup that it could
mhm,
potentially be like a what if we see this team situation. Like it could be so situational to like get a guy like in and like they might see a certain thing about his skill set. Cuz it's not like I
mhm,
just thought it was going to be like wing cover that we were kind of asking for and like more of just more of an expanded role with those kind of minutes. Like I would just see a Torrey Craig type in my head fitting in a little
mhm,
easier. And again, I haven't seen enough of him play for the Celtics this season to know if he's still the same guy I remember when the Suns
yes,
made the
yep,
finals. But
yeah,
it to me, I'm like, oh, that like when we got him, I was like, oh, that makes a shitload of sense. Like I completely understand
yes,
like why we did that. So the Shireman thing, I'm kind of like, yeah, I mean, he is doing, I guess, to a certain extent with those minutes, those extended bench minutes, to what you're
mhm.
saying. But it's also just like, are we gonna do that with him in the playoffs? Like, no, definitely not. So
Well, I mean, yeah. Do you want to lean on
that's
the
what I'm
rookie in the
saying.
playoffs?
Yeah.
Well, of course, right. But because there may be a time when his name needs to be called, you want him to be ready, and that's what this has all been. This what this has been about. And the more his confidence grows. Once again, Torrey Craig is an established player in the league, so he could come in
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, I need 10 to 12 minutes of you tonight," and he's going to be able to come in and do that, play his role, play some good defense. In the limited minutes that he's been in, speaking of Craig, he's been a guy that's played well on defense and has been able to knock down a couple of corner threes. So maybe on the other hand, maybe they don't want to show everything either, right?
Right.
But I'm not saying that he's going to be a big part of their offense in the playoffs, but you don't want to show teams every look that you may want to have coming to postseason. So once again, God, teams maybe get a lot of tape on Simon, but it's like, okay, you're getting tape on Simon, but he may be a tenth
Are they
man.
watching Shireman's tape either? Like, or I don't know if they're even like really spending time in the room with that unless he goes off in a game, like, unless he
Yeah.
really like does something crazy. But I will say, and to your point, I do agree with you on one level where the advanced analytics of all the guys we just talked about, like all these kind of like 10
Mhm.
minute, 10-minute max guys that we just sort of broke off into a tangent about, they're all, even if they're only shooting a few threes total, they're all shooting like 40% from three. So it's like you can see that it's like a situational look where it's like, okay, well, he's still going to hit a three if he's wide open over there, which is like more than you can say for a Xavier Tillman. Right. So it's
Right.
like because you can just completely leave him standing there. And then, yes, obviously our philosophy is still just like if they leave you open, like you can shoot a three. But that's a little bit of a tougher pill to swallow when it's Xavier Tillman as opposed to like a six man of the year Peyton Pritchard form, where you're just like, yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Like, so it's like, if you want to start to rotate that kind of offense in a playoff situation where you're running up the score on somebody at home in a game one, that's great. Like we're up 27, and like you slowly start to roll those guys in, and they all hit their threes when they first come on the floor. So it's a foot on the neck of philosophy with that. So you're right. Like a lot of different situational looks available to us, more so than the last time we talked. Like we were all sort of scratching our heads about what kind of inside out play we could really find from the bench, and now, like you're saying,
Mhm.
the way Kornet's playing, the couple of things he's added to his game alone has, I think, really like upped the value of all that. I think Hauser is finally, I wouldn't say he's, drive to the rim unbelievable, but he finally can at least exist inside the perimeter and like not completely fuck the offense up, right?
Well, I think that's where the contrast is between him and Simon, right? Because obviously there's been instant comparisons because of how Simon's come in and played recently. And it's like, look, he's not he does enough differently than Hauser to still be on the floor and make an impact. So Hauser is an elite off the dribble shooter now. Like we weren't saying that a few years ago. We were looking at the other Matt Ryan as an option. 'Cause that's a casual name drop for those that like we was looking at the Matt Ryan. I forget what school he came out of, but we were looking at another Matt Ryan to be an option instead of Sam Hauser. So Brad struck again with that one there too. But his
Prep.
development has been crazy. I know prep. Okay, yeah. So has been amazing to see his off the ball skills, and yeah, he does enough now where you have to respect the shot. So if he gives the up fake, which is still the best move in basketball, you give an up fake, he can now get to the cup, shoot that 15-footer with regularity. So yeah, I mean, like I said, they can come at you in a myriad of ways, and it's curtains when they catch fire. And the last time I checked, they're now up 5 at halftime. So I'm saying, like, it's just it's not. I don't want to disrespect the game and say that it's easy, but the game has become easier for a lot of these guys on this team, and when they're locked in, when they're locked into the game plan, as they keep saying in their post game pressers, it's they're a tough out for anybody, and it's just like it's gonna be tough come April, May, and June to get this team 4 times. So that's that. But speaking of the guy that's been tough, he's had some injuries as of late. Really, the whole team has had injuries, but this guy was injured with his hands. Jrue Holiday, my guy. He's had a bit of a resurgence here. We were a little nervous earlier in the year because we weren't seeing some of the same outputs that he had last year, mainly from the corner three. So I'll give it back to you, man. But just speak about Holiday's impact as of late, and them now being 54-3 when he scores 14 or more. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, I mean, we were worried about it for good reason. He was a huge part of why we won a championship. That entire backcourt, like the him and White defensive backcourt, especially that they created down the stretch, and I mean really for the whole of last season, but really like that when they got to that point of like we actually do now have the best defensive backcourt in the NBA, even though we don't have Marcus Smart here to say compliments about himself out loud in the press all the time anymore. But shots fired. Sorry, I love Marcus Smart. It's fine. We don't need to relitigate that. But I mean, when you see flashes of old Jrue on the defensive side of the ball, I think that's where he gets his game going. So when Jrue Holiday comes into a game, if he's like a little 6s and 7s in the backcourt trying to defend the other team, if he has like his hands full with a Steph Curry, if he has his hands full with it didn't really look like that tonight with a Ja Morant on the comeback, because I think D White matches up against him a little bit more. He tries to get a switch to like a Hauser or something, but when he has his hands full, there's a different offensive Jrue Holiday, which we could so live with in the playoffs last year, right? Where it was like, it's fine. Like, you just play defense, you just play your role. You don't need to be a 19-point-a-game guy. You can be an 11-point-a-game guy. That's completely fine. Like, we have so many scoring options, especially when Porzingis came in towards the end. It was like, okay, this is getting fucking ridiculous. Like, how do you even,
right?
Like,
right.
like what?
Right.
So, you remember that. And then, like, that's kind of what it's like looking like at times over the last 10 games, especially with, like, how loose he's playing. But with Jrue, I think that the biggest thing has been that he doesn't get overwhelmed on the defensive side of the ball for the last 20 games or so. I think that's been about the time where I think White, healthy, in the backcourt with him, able to pick up guys that he runs around, playing more defense as a unit. The whole unit sort of coexisting out there on a more consistent basis, I think will also help him. And it is a relief, honestly, because I think that it's a big hinge in our defensive backcourt is Jrue Holiday. So it would be a lot to hope for, despite all the weapons we have in the front court, despite all the scoring and defense we have in the front court, and how incredibly crazy stacked it is in there. What ends up happening is you start to domino in the wrong direction, because you're like, Jalen, you need to pick up Drew's guy now. And we've seen what happens when that happens. So we're a little bit like, come on, man. Like, what we really want is Jaylen Brown, to be able to go off offensively at any given time. Like, he's our primary B scorer, right? Like, so he's our 1A still. So, we can't, it's, the team still coexists on itself, as much as we have all these options. You can't really pull out a Jrue Holiday and still expect to be as elite and effective in conference final situations and final situations as we were last season. So I'm really glad to see it in the timing that it's happening. Maybe you don't think that it's as important as I do, but I am a big Jrue Holiday fan. I know you are too. So maybe that's skewing me a little bit, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, no, he's definitely a key to what they do. That record being 54-3, where he scores 14 or more, speaks to him being a tone setter, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be 10 points in the quarter or 20 points in the quarter. We're getting 55 in a game like he did, or not 55, 51 in the game like he did against Indiana a couple of years ago. Like we don't need that. Like it'd be great to see him get a game like that
I
at
think it
some
was
point. But
51. I think it was 51. I think you're right the
yeah,
first time.
so yeah, so so you don't have to have that. But at the same time, we've seen it in game one and game two of the finals last year when they you could tell the nerves were there, and he scored the first 6 points for us in that first game. And it kind of hit the ground running after that because he was saying, in a way, he was saying, "Okay, I'm the one that's been here. I'm the one that's won. I got y'all." And we think about the play against Indiana, obviously, when he got the steal on Nemhard, couple of the corner threes that he hit, even during the regular season last year. So you think about those moments, and he just contributes to winning basketball more times than not. And I just think that when he's on, when he's locked in, when he's right, and once again, the record speaks for itself. Men lie, women lie. Numbers don't lie. It's just different, and I think that we'll continue to see that, from him. I think that he's been pacing himself. I think the whole
I
team in
agree. I
general
was
has been
gonna say
pacing.
that same thing. I was saving up that point to Button because I agree. He has actually really been managing his own minutes out there because a lot of his play is hard play. Like a lot of the Jrue
Yeah.
Holiday game is like hard defense, physical. He can go down the post for a guard. Like I agree with you wholeheartedly. So he is keeping that stuff out of his game so his knees don't fucking fall out from under him. I get that part too. But there were actual warning signs I think in the early part of the season
Yes.
that weren't that.
Yes. For sure. And I think that's where, and I'm sure as competitive as he is,
Sure.
I'm sure that he, was looking for ways to, improve his game there. But once again, when the lights are his brightest, I firmly believe he's going to show up. And I'm not speaking of him getting 20 points, but like I said, he's going to get a key steal. He's going to make a key pass.
Or he gets 20
He's
points. Or one night he just like drops
or
20.
it's like, and then once again, if that's happening, and then like I said, Tatum and Brown are clicking at the same time, like good luck. Like I think about that Cleveland series last year, him and Horford to me really won that series. I'm obviously, we know what Tatum and Brown ended up doing later on, but him and Holiday and Horford were amazing. And like Horford's good, has been really good tonight too. He has 13 as in 5 as we're speaking at the half. He's another guy. Like this is like
Yeah, I know.
the Angels won. And I was waiting to say this, but whatever. It's relevant because to what we're talking about. And we've said this on the show before, but I just have to reiterate this. There's no question of number 42 being a Hall of Famer if he goes out the way he ended his collegiate career as a pro. So he played at the University of Florida. You think about him, Lee Humphrey, Corey Brewer, Joakim Noah, Billy Donovan was their
I
coach.
think it's
They
already
went back
sealed
to
because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame.
no,
We've had this,
no, right, but I'm saying, but it's like for sure, like
Yeah.
there's no like, oh, maybe like no, like to end your collegiate career back to back and potentially end your NBA career back to back, like there would be no like you cannot say anything else. Five-time All-Star, like it's just like it's there. Like dude has been sensational his whole career here in Boston. He should absolutely go in as a Boston Celtic. I know that he was better statistically as a Hawk.
No, where you won
Um,
though? Where you won? I mean, I know
yeah,
like I know
but
like there's exceptions. To me, it's where you won because I like okay, yeah, KG went in as a Timberwolf, right? But it's like he
mhm,
played his whole fucking career there. You know what I mean? It's like I know that he played like a big chunk,
yeah,
but there's such a significant portion of his career in Boston, Al Horford, I mean, that it's just like, come on. Like if he came here,
right.
he played here for that long. He came here twice, right?
Mhm,
Like I don't know. I think yes, as a Celtic two-time champion, that seems
yeah,
obvious to me.
yeah, and like that to me, let's say it would speak to the work that he put in. And once again, he's been the consummate professional. He's been someone that's been steady, and he's been a steady.
Glue.
Yeah, the glue guy for sure. So I love that. But yeah, like I said, but to end this point on Holiday before we get to the next player, Holiday has been, he's been another glue guy here, and I think that like I said, I just firmly believe that when the time is right, he'll be ready. And like I say, to me, he's the tone setter. So I hope that he continues that. I hope that they keep saying that to him because they've said that he doesn't care about the numbers, which is fine. But it's just like it's more demoralizing when you see him go off and then it's like, damn, now he's hot. I gotta account for him. And then now it's going back to JB, it's going back to JT, it's going back to Porzingis, it's going back to D White. So, it helps when everyone's evolved because you're like, you kind of go like, well, what do I do? Well, I'll tell you, you can't do anything. But there's something you can do when those guys are not hot. Which leads into your guy. We can talk about him next. Kristaps Porzingis. He's been hot in the fishing grease to still alive from Mark Jones. So I'll just let you go in about KP, man. Just he's been awesome since he came back from injury. So but have you seen enough from him to be like, you can chill until the first round, or do you want to see him get more reps with the first team?
He's been so good that the more reps with the first team he gets, the more it's going to very quickly, I think would surprise people, very quickly be more difficult to play without him. Like, I know that we can and like we have an identity without him out there, and we like basically won a championship without him. If you really talk about the entirety of it, it was like a cheat code when he came in for those cameos. But like,
Well,
he's playing at such a dynamic level that you really do miss so much of his game when he's not in there now. That being said, whatever the doctors say, whatever the smartest thing to do about his giant body I just want him healthy for the playoffs at this point. If that means getting minutes in a sort of managed way to make sure he's still limber and loose and he's playing on the injury and that's what it's designed to do, then great. If it means putting him on ice and then trying to push him back at a slower level leading into the playoffs, also fine. As far as his actual play goes, we had ceilings for this guy in our heads when he got on the team that were pretty high as a pick and pop guy, that was going to add a real level of dynamism to this team, because none of us thought we were going to get Knicks Porzingis, right? Like, we didn't think that was going to happen. But cast your mind back to when Phil Jackson was committing ritual samurai suicide as the GM of the New York Knicks. Do you remember this time period? And he was basically like fire sailing the entire team at a time where, they look like they might have a couple of guys, Porzingis being one of them. And the Celtics were the favorite landing spot for Porzingis before he eventually got traded to Dallas, right? First. So look at that. And you remember what kind of guy we thought we were getting then. And that's the kind of game I've seen from him since he's come back from this latest injury. And it's fucking cool to watch, man. Like, he's not just a pick and pop guy. Like, he's a super, super high IQ basketball player with a ton of weapons and is a matchup nightmare for 90% of every team's roster. It's, I could say that sentence and most people would give the Jeopardy answer. And I'm not saying he's this, but most people give the Jeopardy answer when you give that description of who is Nikola Jokic. You know what I mean? Like, you could be describing Nikola Jokic in that situation. I will also say, we didn't see enough meaningful minutes until this kind of last stretch from him at his like playing peak to realize how good of a playmaker he is. And the way that he creates size mismatches at the top of the elbow to play make from is so fun to watch, because he's like, oh, I can see everything now. Because I turn around and this guy's just like, and he doesn't need to really go around him. But the other thing is, if he gets a slow big on the perimeter, you have to respect his 3-point shot to the point where, I'll quote you from a few minutes ago, the up fake, the best play in basketball, has dudes with their knees locked and their hands going straight up in the air. And he might not be the most majestic inside out dribbler you've ever seen, but if another semi-slow big is on him out there, and they're going straight up in the air, he's going around them and he's going to finish at the rim too. So you're just like, Jesus, dude, like you're fucking spoiled for choice here, especially because the Tatums of the world, like the guy looks like Tim Duncan out there half the time, like with the way that he moves and like inside out. And I'm like, and I'm not saying he's Tim Duncan, and I'm not saying he's Nikola Jokic, because like best ability is availability. But what I am saying is, and I'm not saying he's as good as those guys or like, or whatever. What I'm saying is, I think we were vastly underrating him. And I think the overall NBA community, because of his injury history and because of going places that didn't work out as well for him, we're vastly underrating him. And I think we knew we were getting something awesome, and we were all smashing the fucking deal button on that. Like, I'm not saying it's like this is a massive surprise, but what I am saying is, I don't know if any of us would have thought that we were getting this guy at his peak right now. That I don't think anyone was saying that back then.
Absolutely not. And once again, Mike was a little bit ahead. Well, not a little bit. He was way ahead of the curve by saying that we should when you go get him. And I, like I said, I religiously was like, no way. There's no way that one day you go get him. But then two, if you do get him, would he stay healthy? And yes,
Right.
has he still had health injuries, or health issues? Obviously, that's been the case. But yeah, he's been the perfect third guy, and I think around the league, some saw this coming, so it was kind of like, damn, like you got Tatum and Brown balling, and then now you add Porzingis to that, and then you get gift wrapped uh Holiday,
I
like
know.
it's unbelievable. So the way that Porzingis came out the gate swinging even last season, he just, I mean, like I say, I don't know, it was just the dude is just special,
I mean, his
and
movement.
um,
But you saw that right
yeah,
away, even last season. Like his movement's crazy, and you're just like, I don't know if I was familiar with this. Like, I don't know if I was
yeah.
familiar with this guy
Yeah, I mean,
properly.
it was like I said, it was like that in New York, and there was some moments of that in Dallas,
But
but
he was a forgotten
he,
man down there. You know?
no, for sure, but even though, and this is where I say people say, "Oh man, you're scoring on a bad team," da da da. That Washington team was bad that he was on, right?
Yeah.
But he refound his game down there
Hmm.
because he played 57 games. He had 22 a night, 8 rebounds,
Mike was,
two or
to
three
his
assists.
credit, the first one to say that. He was like, he
Yeah,
played a lot
no,
of
no,
games last season. He found his bottle back in Washington. Like, I'll give him
right.
credit for that.
So well, yeah, exactly. So like I said, Mike was on it, but it's just like with him finding his game down there, it was enough to show, okay, if we get any version of this guy here, Ben 18 was coming, and that's what happened. And now, he's increased the window, for this team. Because once again, he's only he'll be 30 this year. So it's not like he still has a few more years in his prime. And I think that's what we're seeing. Like, we're seeing a guy that's completely figured it out in that regard. And once again, that bank shot is deadly. And then there's Tim Duncan. I'll say it, whatever. Oh well, put spice the clips up however you want, Craig. But is that bank shot is very similar. The 3-point shot is a weapon. Like, it's weird because he sometimes will miss a 10-footer, but then he'll hit one from the logo, and it's like I'm talking with ease, like not even like, oh, it kind of rounded in, like with ease we hit one from their logo. So I'm like, excuse me, it's insane, but nevertheless, he's been nothing short of awesome. And I think that, to what you were saying earlier about him, like he really becomes one of the X factors for the players, right? Obviously, they have a few on this team, but to me, he probably should be at the top of the list. And we'll talk about that when we do a playoff preview, regardless of who they face. Probably could be Orlando, and we'll get into that later on in the show.
I
But
hope it's
yeah,
Atlanta for just as a
he's been awesome.
teaser. I hope it's not Orlando.
Yes, yeah,
I have a weird thing about how they play. Their defense is like really good. Like, it's actually better than I think people think. So I
yeah.
vote Atlanta again.
Well, um, well, I mean, if that's the case, the next guy on the list right now is going to continue to cook, and that's the agent our new agent zero, the anomaly, the problem, as LeBron James dubbed him, Jayson Tatum, man. Like Eddie House said, it just looks easy. It looks
Yeah,
easy right now.
it does.
Are we officially in the Tatum era, or do you still put guys like Jokic and other players ahead of him? Which is fine if we do, but are we getting closer to his era? It being his era.
It's tough, man, because like he's still a weird player to try to quantify and talk about. Like, even for us as Celtics fans, who I think are actually on the sort of right side of history, being like high on him as like in the elite player conversation, right? Like, obviously he's up there. Like, he's one of the best players in basketball. But like, speaking of
Well,
Tim Duncan, and again, I'm not saying he is Tim Duncan, so don't splice the clips up however you want, Craig. Don't make me say that on the internet. I'm saying Tim Duncan had a feature of his game, career, legacy, whatever you want to call it, where he was sort of the basketball aficionado's favorite player. Your favorite player's favorite player, right? The sort of advanced analytics guy, the rock, the basketball nerd's favorite player, however you want to quantify it. It was really, he was never the flashiest, so therefore he was never talked about at the level I think he should have been consistently over the
right,
course of his career, right? I think that's a fair thing to say about Timmy, right? I think
right,
that's probably going to end up being true of Tatum also, because he has the kind of personality that, I mean, I think suits his game. You know, I think Kevin Durant had a little bit of this, but sort of had to like add things to both to become like the top end player that he eventually became when he's like killing LeBron in the finals. The Jayson Tatum has, you know, like when he won a championship, I'm not going to sit here and deny that he very clearly didn't have a line ready. And so he just said like six of the ones he remembered other guys saying, kinda. And it's like that weird moment where you're like, he doesn't have like the Anthony Edwards sort of charisma. He doesn't have like the Kobe Bryant Mamba mentality brand. He doesn't have the Shaquille O'Neal like most dominant sort of quality. He doesn't have the Allen Iverson, you know, holy shit, you've never seen handles like this. So you put him in context and you kind of think about the sort of NBA street fire ability that Jayson Tatum would turn on, and it would just be like making a shitload of shots at exactly the right time. That also being said, he's a weird enigma in his game, and we know this, we've talked about this, where he's a bit of a table setter, yet he's like a really, really, really high level scorer, right? So there's times where you're frustrated on one end with him when he's choosing to do one, and you really kind of need him to be choosing to do the other. And that's been a thing over the course of his career, especially for us as Celtics fans.
Right.
But the numbers don't lie. You know, I mean, if you add all of this together, it does make, at the very least, one of the three best players in the NBA right now. And I don't think I'll be killed for saying that. That being said, I would still, and I know that I always have to wear the mantle of like the kind of hater on Jayson Tatum or whatever. And I don't mean to talk myself into this corner because I do really like his game, and I do think that we're NBA champions last year because he's on our team. To be totally honest with you, regardless of what you make of his performance in the final series and who won finals MVP and blah, 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 blah. I just know because I watched all the games. The criticism that I level at him is that there might be two guys better than him in the whole league at this point. I don't know if that's like, if I'm really killing him when I say that. That being said, it's hard. I would still want Jayson Tatum right now because of where he is in his career, because he's a proven winner. It's hard to say that he's going to like win MVP over SGA this year. Right, with the way that SGA is scoring, with the way that he's producing, like, and the way that those votes go, and additionally,
and I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, and additionally, just as a quick button on the point, additionally, Joker also already a winner, has already has already put his money where his mouth is, and like is still playing at a super high level, even if his team is sort of gone down a little bit around him. So, you know, they're going to get Joker, another 1B guy, and we're going to have to really worry about him again. That's even if he doesn't make the finals this year, that's still very possible, you know, even if they are searching for their identity as an offensive team a little bit over there. So, yeah, I'd probably put him at 3 right now. Yeah. But I'd still rather have him than anyone else, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a unbiased, fair assessment. I mean, once again, I think that we'll get to a point where I think he becomes number one in my mind.
He's already got a more well-rounded game than SGA, you know. But that's a lot of that's just like the amount of time he's been in the league, and you know.
Or just Well, no, but listen, they're the same age, and I'm sick of the narrative being that SGA is the young guy, a young up and coming. He's 3 months younger than Tatum.
It's a young and up and coming team, though, right? Like they're a little bit ahead of schedule.
No, he gets called young and up. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the
that's why though I think. You know, I think it's because of the way that team has sort of been built. He's gotten a lot more breaks as we're waiting. You know,
when Tatum was 19 and Brown was 20, like they weren't getting afforded the same thing. You know what was happening?
That's because they were going into the Celtics
finals. Right? No, right. But I mean, they were going into the conference finals. I mean, unfortunately, they lost to LeBron James. But
I know, but the standards are very different. What you're asking for here, you know what I mean? Like you're just gonna get a break in a market like Oklahoma City because they're just like happy that you're here. You know, we have different expectations in Boston.
Russ didn't get the same break that he gets right now, and he's not better than KD or Russ. Sorry,
yeah, but that's our fault. But you know that's our fault though, right? Like you know that's the Celtics fan base is at fault for that. Like we kill our own guys before anyone else even has a chance to come near them. So it's like it comes from us.
Well, which is also crazy for and you're not wrong. We've done it many times on the show, but I
Not
say
just
that to
us though. I
say
think we're less bad than like the majority of fucking Celtics fans out there. Like,
no, for sure. 'Cause it gets pretty scary on Reddit and some other platforms that talk about Celtics ad nauseum. But
yeah,
um, I say that to say OKC, I think is as we record this is 62-12, right?
yeah,
By far the number one record in the West. They may even having the best record in the league when it's all said and done. And I say that to say when the Celtics were running away with the NBA, not just the not just the East, running away with the NBA, and it was just like, well, can't give this guy the MVP because he has this, he has that, and the reason why I'm bringing that up, Lou Dort is not a scrub. Jalen Williams is not a scrub. Chet Holmgren is not a scrub. Alex Caruso, not a scrub. Isaiah Hartenstein, not a scrub. So when we had this mindset of like, well, this team wasn't like that, or like they went through their lumps the last 2 years too, and now they've been the number one seed back-to-back seasons. So they're on they're on the rise, and they're a hell of a team, and they deserve every bit of praise they've been getting because they've been running through the West and running through the NBA as a whole. Not a problem with that. My only my only gripe and my only issue is that we look at SJ as if he's 21 or 22, and like I said, he's the same age as Tatum, and the the critique is not the same. Once again, if he's your favorite, fine, that's fine. You have preferences, that's not a problem. Excuse me. Excuse me, but let's not act like the resume right now is the same because it's not. And it's a cop out to say, well, look at the team. Uh Jason Tatum's worst team was that 2020-2021 team that went 500. They got into the play-in. He scores 50 against Washington, which was actually it's still a record for the play-in. Comes in, drops 54 on on Brooklyn in game three, to stave off them getting swept. So it's just like, I just think about their resumes are not the same right now. Both very talented players, both guys you want leading your franchise. But I just want people to understand that there's been levels to what's going on. And Tatum essentially has been doing this from day one because the key guy that was going to be ahead of him got hurt and he got thrown into the fire and has produced from day one. And once again, that's not an opinion, that's a fact. So it's just like I don't know what more people need to see from him. I get it, it's the Boston tax, as you just alluded to. But the more I watch him, the more I watch some other players in this league, we got to give credit where it's due. Like this man is special, and if you want to call him the Tim Duncan of wings, I'm here with that because I'm definitely here for 5 championships.
yeah,
Please,
yeah.
give me 5.
Yeah, listen, and
I'm
I think there's a myriad of factors that go into why Tatum gets talked about the way that he gets talked about. I think that you're right in the sense that a lot of it is unfair. A lot of it is like post contextual. A lot of it is put there by his own fans. A lot of it is the kind of personality that he has and the kind of personality that the franchise historically has. And, some of it, the most unfair part of it probably is how long guys have seen him not make it to the promised land, which really should be a check in the Tatum is fucking good column because you saw him in those situations so many times at such a young age. To your point, like I think you touched on that. Um, but really it's counted against him. For whatever reason, it's counted against him, and I'm not really sure why that is because they were so far ahead of schedule back then. And you're right. I mean, SGA only got drafted a year after Tatum, and when you really put it in that, the cold hard light of day, he is treated like the new kid on the block because he wasn't there at age 20, blocking shots of LeBron James in the Eastern Conference Finals. And yeah, like, should we have won that series? I think so. To be honest, like, I think we should have won that series. Like, I think we kind of choked it up at the end. I think we had the
Yeah,
ability to if we had rode the momentum a little bit better. But
right.
like you said, he's also performed on slump teams as much as Boston has basically been good the entire time that he's been here. There have been situations where there's been a lot. I mean, the whole Kyrie saga, like that's years ago now.
Mhm.
But
Right,
it
right. That's why I think that and I don't know, and you get beat by the margin of success. Somebody knew it said a couple of years ago. I
Yeah,
forget.
you get hit with the cudgel of your own success. Like
Yes,
you get
yes.
like tarred by your own abilities at that point
Oh,
because you
so
created your context.
we forget, and that's and not well. I say we, but not us as Celtics fans, but collectively outside of the it's crazy. So the Hayward injury,
Yeah.
the Kyrie injury,
Yep. The Kyrie
Horford
brain.
leaves. Yeah, Horford leaves. Kyrie leaves. Kemba gets hurt. Rob Williams gets hurt. Like, there's so many things that went wrong, and we act like, well, shit,
He gets hurt.
everyone,
He gets
it's
hurt
always been a
in that final
yeah,
series against Golden State.
like, it's like there's so much stuff that went left when it was supposed to go right. They earned what happened last year.
Yeah.
That's why I said multiple times, I felt once again, yes, you want people to be healthy, you want people to be at their best. But as Celtics fans, selfishly, we ain't been through the gauntlet.
Yeah.
Once again, forgot about how can I forget Isaiah Thomas? Wait, what are we like? There's no like we have been through the AG, Paul Ray left.
I mean, there's
So
been
I'm
5
so
eras since we drafted him.
yeah,
There's basically been
yeah.
5 eras on this team. Like it's been crazy what the stuff that's happened on this team, and to the point where the guys that we were worried about him being matched up against, the guys that he were his peers, right? And I agree with you to the point of SGA is one. It's just that we weren't talking about him when we were talking about Tatum v. Embiid, Tatum v. Giannis. He was in battles with those guys. And now we're talking about him in the context of SGA. We're talking about him in the context of Joker. He's the consistent variable here. He's the guy that's been in both conversations. These are different eras of basketball. LeBron James was still in his prime adjacent. He was prime adjacent when Tatum started playing basketball. And we're coming up against him in the East. So I agree with you.
This is the thing, right? If they make another conference finals this year, and then maybe hopefully another NBA finals, this will now be his 3rd NBA finals. That was the case that he's made, and his seventh conference final. 7th. He's been in the conference finals every year, I think, except for 2021.
Those are LeBron numbers, man. Like those are LeBron numbers.
Okay, I didn't really get there because supposed to get emotional. But I'm like, what we're seeing is once again adjacent, similar, whatever word you want to use, whatever math term you want to use, whatever geometric term you want to use. It's happening. Give credit where it's due. Give credit where it's due. That's it. He doesn't have to be your favorite. He doesn't have to be what you think is the best player. That's fine. But to say that he's not a baller, to say that we haven't seen him show up.
That.
No. I'm saying, but there's people that are still stupid and act like he hasn't shown up in big moments. And I'm just like, I don't understand where that narrative is still growing legs. I don't understand it. Like the dude, we have seen him multiple times. Yes, if you want to hold 2022 against him forever, fine. Once again, we held 2007 against LeBron. I get it. Or we hold the 6 losses. Fine. If you want to do that, cool. He still got there 10 times when your favorite player didn't get there once. I'm talking to you, Ty, Mr. Carmelo Anthony. And once again, I love Melo, but you may be throwing straight at Carmelo because you killed Tatum. So I had to put it out there. Wow. I love you, Ty.
Love that.
But it's just like it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
how do y'all feel what Jayson Tatum has done, and you need to pay homage?
Yeah,
like plain and simple. When it's said and done, just like when 23 walks away, you will miss 0 when he's gone too. I'm telling you, he's one of the best players the league has ever seen. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer already. Give credit where it's due. Do the special, and so it's
I'd still probably put him 3rd MVP voting.
No,
as much as that was a great impassioned speech.
That's fine. To me, once again, if you want to give it to Jokic, to me, Jokic deserves it again. But it's going to be voters fatigue. They're not going to give it to him.
I feel like I've never liked how the MVP's been awarded in basketball. Like, I fuck your voter
Yeah.
fatigue. Like, LeBron should have won it 10 years in a row. So, like, I don't care. Like, you made it a stupid award when you didn't do that. And then when you gave it to Embiid that year, what was it 2 seasons ago, you gave it to Embiid instead of Jokic because you just wanted to be like hipsters about it. Like, it's so fucking like, it's so part and parcel with how much the NBA fucks up all the stuff around the game lately. The All Star break, the like, all this different stuff and these conversations that like the MVP voting. Like, basketball is a sport where that really should matter, and football has been able to make it matter when we know it matters less. Like, you are individually less important on a football team. Like, you just are because of the amount of dudes on the fucking team, dude. And like the way
Right.
that how much the impact the coaches have and the schemes have and injuries have and all that different stuff. You're just individually less important no matter what position you play in the NFL, right? The
Right.
MVP in basketball should be it needs to be beyond reproach, and it needs to be said what it is. Is it the guy who was the most important to his team, like contributed the most wins, or was it just the straight up best player, or was it what they do sometimes, which is like, I don't know, the leading scorer? You know what I mean? It's like what averages that, like,
Right.
that might be Shea this year. Like, if you wanted to argue against him getting it, as far as I'm concerned, we owe Jokic one because he coughed up, or the NBA coughed one up when they gave it to Embiid and not him. I just point to everything that we now know where Joel Embiid's career is. We basically know, right? I mean, it's a sad subject to bring up, and I'm not doing a funeral pyre for him
Yeah.
because we're Celtics fans,
He,
but
and this may be a wild comparison. So if it is wild, folks can call me out online when this drops. And B to me is kind of like the Penny Hardaway of bigs, because Penny Hardaway,
because he was like the
yeah,
silkiest player
woo,
out there, and
yeah,
then
it was just like it was nothing he couldn't do,
yeah,
and you would see him dominate at all three levels. He was a hell of a playmaker, really good defender, someone that can go get you a bucket whenever.
no,
And it's
Embiid
the
could
same
kill
thing
everybody on his day. He could, but
yeah, yeah. So Embiid is someone who, you know, really has great handles, can play in the post, can shoot the three, really doesn't have a weakness offensively, and when he was focused, can defend. So to me, yeah, he's like the Penny Hardaway of bigs, where you're gonna always wonder what if, because it was a lot of their greatness got robbed from injuries. And once again, like I said, that could be considered a wild comparison, but that's just the first name I thought of
I think it's
because
a really good comparison, to be honest with you. If you draft Penny Hardaway in the NBA 2K mode, where you can go back in time and like redraft leagues seasons
Mhm.
that have happened before, if you draft Penny Hardaway, you get Michael Jordan numbers out of him if you keep him healthy. It's like bananas. Like, it's the
Yeah,
greatest pickup you can possibly make, right?
I mean,
If you
it's
compare him
just
with
like
Shaq, then that's like the game's on easy mode. You know, like,
right. That's where Orlando should have did what they needed to do.
oh my God,
Side
please,
notes,
yes,
that's
Jesus
you know
Christ,
that
that's one of the most egregious.
one of my favorite 30 for 30s, but
Yeah,
it's just
one of the
like
most
wow.
egregious like pieces of GMing in the history of the NBA. To be honest with you, I think whoever didn't make Shaq the biggest offer in basketball history, and or match whatever the Lakers were bringing in, because by all reports he would have signed the Orlando Magic deal if they matched it, right? So, and then we don't get Lakers Shaq, we get forever Magic Shaq, and that's, I think, cool. And I just think you should really count your lucky stars that Luka trade happened, because now that's the worst thing anyone's ever done in a front office. But yeah, that's crazy. It's cool. It's a cool what if to think about, but I really do think it's a good comparison, to be honest with you, because yeah, Embiid could honestly, anyone could get it from Embiid when he was 100%. Like, any single human being in the NBA could get it from him.
Right.
So it sucks, by all reports, like, he's just never going to be the same again now. He's not ever really going to be able to be consistently healthy. He's going to start to fall apart. It's something about bigs too. I
Mhm.
mean, like, people have made Yao Ming comparisons just because probably of like the injuries plus the size, and it is a bit of a sad story, as much as like he was on a rival team to us. Uh, yeah, he was always hard to play against, but I mean, we also always gave it to them, so it's like like, just as a team, like when it mattered, so
Yeah,
it was kind of
especially
like,
he knew that as well. I think and I'll say this before we get back to current day. I just think that with him, he could he could kind of pull what Vince Carter pulled in New Jersey, and I've used this analogy before. People remember Vince was always hurt and his tenure in Toronto. Oh, my knee. my back, my neck. Like it was always something. And then the Toronto Raptors had traded Chris Carter to New Jersey for whoever was in the trade. And all of a sudden, he was catching alley oops again from Jason Kidd. Could help him too. I don't blame. All of a sudden, hitting game winners in Toronto. All of a sudden, dunking on Alonzo Mourning like it was his rookie season. I'm like, oh, it's amazing what happens where you're in a you're in a deemed or perceived better situation. So I just say that to say, don't be surprised if Philadelphia found a way to eat a good amount of Joel Embiid's salary and he moved on to whatever team, I
The
don't know,
Lakers.
let's say, but it's, you know what I'm saying, right? Something like that. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, you're 2000 Shaq again, Joel Embiid. You're getting 34 and 10 again. Rip. What? It's amazing. It's amazing with the they say it never rains in Southern California, but I guess never injuries don't either.
Sunshine's
So it's
great.
like
The sunshine's great for your health. It's really good for
I
your
guess
overall
so.
health. You just need the fresh air and the sunshine. Go to
Facts.
Griffith
I
Park
said,
or something. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised either, just because they just can't keep getting away with it, but they do. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
Listen, I don't even want to think about that. But what I will transfer my energy to, because the energy is about to shift here again on the show. I want to speak about the biggest competition that we have in the East, and that's the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I think they just got to win 60. I think yesterday as we record this, but they've had some struggles because they lost, 4 out of the last 8, something like that. So has this recent struggle given you a different thought process about them, or do you think they're just a team that's ready for the playoffs and kind of going through the motions right now?
I think I've this season been a little bit more scared of them than you are. That's not to say that I think that they have the ability to beat us in a 7-game series despite their achievement of more than likely more regular season wins than us. I think we have like a 1.9% chance of being the 1 seed despite our recent streak and their recent struggles. Their recent struggles they're not a huge factor to me, to be honest with you. I still am kind of impressed by their roster. I'm definitely still scared of Donovan Mitchell. I think he can really give it to our guys when he wants to, and I think that's been proven, at least on the offensive side of the ball. We do, I think, expose him a little bit defensively from time to time, just because of how our two guys like match up with him. But again, it's hard. He's one of those players. He's got like all the stuff, and I think they have the defense. I don't know if he's going to win, but I think they have the defensive player of the year on their team. Just the way he's been playing on the defensive side of the ball. I've always been a big Jared. Obviously talking about Evan Mobley. I've been a big Jared Allen fan since he was on Brooklyn. I always thought I would see him be a third or fourth best guy on a really good playoff team, and I think I'm seeing
Mm.
that now. I think their roster's good. I think Darius Garland is fucking really good. I think, I think these guys are good. I really genuinely think they've earned their wins, and I know that you've been a
It's
little lower on them. Do I think they're better than the Celtics? No, I don't. So,
mm,
I'm not throwing out any hot takes here. I still think we're going to give it to them when we see them in the Eastern Conference Finals, if we see them in the Eastern Conference Finals.
no,
I think we match up really well against them. I think we match up really well
no.
against everybody, to be honest with you. But I don't think they have an answer for a fully healthy Celtics front court. That's the
Yeah,
only reason.
and that's where my sentiment lies as well, right? I think when we had Drew on the show and we talked to Max about it as well. I came across that I was being dismissive, and it wasn't about me being dismissive. It was more so like I believe in Boston more than I
Yeah.
believe in
No, I
the
hear
other
you.
team. And once again, Cleveland's been phenomenal. But and I'll say the analogy, or I'll give the reference I gave to Drew and I gave to Max. This is not the first time we've seen a great Cleveland team, and I'm not even comparing it to the LeBron teams because that was different. This team is better than the teams that he was on. He's just the best player in the world, so it was different. When we were very little, they had a team similar to the team they have now. They had a guy named Mark Price, who was a phenomenal point guard for a good 3 or 4 year stretch. Craig Elo, a young Steve Kerr. People don't know that, but a young Steve Kerr was on that team before he got to Chicago, excuse me, in the Phoenix or whatever. So he was out there. Harvard Williams, Brad Daugherty, and Brad Daugherty and Howard Williams was like Eric Allen and Mobley, right? So they had that. They had a team like this. And then they ran into 23. And he came into their old arena in Richfield and he sent them home. And I'll say what I said in January. I'll say it again now. I believe zero in any. I'll take him in any role in any building. Any building. They have proven to you this year, especially this year, even last year, but this year specifically, when they come into your arena, you have a good shot of getting blown out the building. Period. Once again, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Shout out to your Gotti and Low Wade. Numbers don't lie. So 31-7 on the road. I don't know what the score is now because I haven't checked it because we've been on here. But it's like they could very well be 32-7 depending on what happens here tonight. This team is different on the road, and home court to me does not matter to a man on that team. So they better figure it out because, like I said, they've made it a little bit interesting in recent weeks. So I'm hoping that translates into the playoffs, that they start to play a little less passionate than they have been playing. And like I say, I trust Boston in this situation. Even before they won, I trust them on the road, period. I trust them on the road. Once again, we've seen Tatum give his best performances on the road.
Yeah. No, I mean, I honestly think that the Cavaliers series is the series that means the least for our seeding. Ironically, like despite the fact that we've been trying to play catch up with them for the most of the regular season, I really think that them having home court, I'm still like very confident that we beat them. I just want to offer a little bit of compliment to them because I really do think that they've been very good all season, and I think that they'll still be the hardest team we have to beat in the East. I think that Evan Mobley is fucking 23 years old, dude. You know, I think he's going to be a hill we have to climb for the entire foreseeable period that he's in the Eastern Conference. You know, like this is a guy that I genuinely believe is like really good at basketball. And I think you could put a team around him. And I think they have put a team around him. Or, you know, around each other, however you want to like really see like this team as it's currently constituted. They have a lot of weapons. You know, if it was just a Darius Garland issue, you know, with the size of our backcourt, I'm not that worried. If it's just a Spider Mitchell issue, you know, again, it's like, but they do have a lot of stuff to throw at us, and I still think it will be the hardest series that we have if it goes like that, you know. And that's not to say I'm not very confident that we'll win, and I do fully agree with you, but I do want to just mitigate it slightly because we're not throwing these guys away. I think we respect them as a team.
Yeah, no, I expected to go 6 or 7 either way. Like, there's no way either team wins in 5.
We could beat them in Cleveland in a game 7 is the thing. That's like the thing I think the most.
And that's to me, that's what it boils down to. So I'm just like, backsides get tight and people start to shrink. And
we've been there already.
We've been there, and none of those guys have been there. So
yeah,
because I'm not counting Game 7 against Orlando last year. I'm sorry. Once again, Orlando is not. It's not spin. So I mean, yeah, it's great. They won their Game 7 at home. Cool, okay. But when it matters most, and once again, no fans were yelling, "We won Boston." So
yeah,
I
remember that.
I implore your fan base again to shout what you want. You want the green teamers to come into your building, okay? Because we're gonna show up. We're gonna be there. The fans. This fan base shows up. Excuse me. This fan base shows up. So if that's what you're looking for, and you want a rematch of last year, because you felt that guys weren't healthy. Which okay, yeah, you missed Jared Allen for a little bit, and then you missed Donovan Mitchell. But like I said, we was out Porzingis the whole playoffs just about, and Al Horford dominated. Quick aside, he has 26 and counting right now.
Yeah, he started good. He started good before we started recording, so I kind of saw that coming.
So think about that. A guy that's your 7th, 8th guy who's 49 years old, still giving you the business.
Yeah, well, he's still got the green light at the 3. He's still got the green light at the 3. I mean, there's 4 guys that you're just like running to chase after.
That's thing. When he, and once again, back to the Hall of Fame thing again, when he has his Hall of Fame speech, the first guy he needs to think is Brad Stevens, because Brad Stevens is the one who encouraged him to start shooting the 3, because he wasn't doing it, and he would have been just another He's a solid player because I mean he played well in Atlanta, but the 3-point shot saved his career.
Oh yeah.
So thank you, Brad Stevens. Thank you to anyone else that put it in his ear to say, hey, if you shoot this, we'll let you shoot this when you come here. But we got to make sure that you work on this, and he's worked on
It's
it.
been one of the biggest shots in the last 5 years of being a Celtics fan. It's one of the biggest shots is Al Horford's open three. So yeah,
Yep. Yep.
I'm with you.
And then yep. So let's say because we're getting long all the time, but to close this out, we kind of teased it a few moments ago, but Atlanta and Orlando are in that 7th, 8th seed right now. Obviously, the play-in tournament hasn't been finalized yet, so we don't know the matchups. But you mentioned that you want Atlanta in the first round, so I'll give my synopsis as well in a minute. But I want you to explain why you think Atlanta would be the preferred matchup for you.
Well, we just did it already. I'd just be happy, like you were just sort of alluding to, that we want Boston chants from certain fan bases. I just think I'm happy to take the same route. I'm happy to do it the same way we've done it in the past. I think Trae Young is a heck of a player. I think they have some decent players on their roster. I think LeVert gives us problems from time to time, whatever situations he's in. I think we smack them. I think we beat them in 4. I think the way that we match up against them is a nightmare for them, especially if we're fully healthy, which I always have to caveat, obviously, because of the Porzingis of the whole dream. And
Right.
I just think Paolo is a lot more of a hassle. It's just more of a hassle. I don't think we're gonna lose to the Orlando Magic, but I think they're a really scrappy defensive team. I think that
Yeah.
of the top 10, the only team who has less points per game defensively is them to us. So,
Yeah.
if we build off our defense, so do they. And I just think we're going to be fucking exhausted by the end of playing Orlando, even if we give it to them in 5 or 6,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Right.
what I would come on this show and predict. I'd be like 5 or 6, probably 6, right? That's what I would probably say going into an Atlanta series, and just to hedge. But realistically, we're still going to be fucking tired. The Hawks, I think 4 or 5. I might lean 4. And I think it's a good warm up series. We saw it already. So I know we sound so cunty. I know we sound so nobody is as good as us, even though we're not even the 1 seed. I get it, but also I don't know. I've been watching them. You know what I mean? I just don't think
every top one. But I'll go back to I'll give my thing in a minute. But just to that last point you made. Now, granted, they didn't win the finals this year, but I'm just using it as an example. This Cleveland team also reminds me of the 2011 Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, remember them?
Yeah,
First
and
round.
they was right. No, that's the year after, but that's because D-Rose got hurt.
Right.
But I'm
Right,
saying
right.
the years before they lost to Miami in the
Right.
conference finals.
Right.
But
Right.
I have to say they was running through everybody too.
Yeah.
Derrick Rose became MVP, and
It was great. It was a great season. It was fun.
yeah,
It was
Stacey
fun for all of us.
Stacey King, who was by far my favorite color commentator, dubbed him the Windy City Assassin. It was great. It was awesome. And it was just it was cool, until, Miami came in there and beat him in 5. So I just say that to say it has been a great regular season, and regardless of the outcome, it's been a great season. I'm not that fan that's win or bust. Especially when you're there in Cleveland, it's not win or bust out there because they haven't had many great teams out there.
It's not even win or bust in OKC. It's it's not.
You know what I'm saying? So I get that. So I say that to say I'm with you with the Atlanta thing as well. Dyson Daniels to me is an intriguing player. But the guy they got in the DeJounte Murray trade. He can defend at a high level. He had a really good game against us earlier this year as well. So I can see him giving us fits. Trae, because he can go crazy. Trae can get him a game like he did a couple years ago.
Sure.
Well, he actually got him 2 games because he's built for the moment. I don't care if he plays in Atlanta. He's built for the moment, and once again, he's been to a conference finals too. So he's built for the moment. But needless to say, that would be a very quick series. Like you said,
they're a very young team. I think if we
Right.
if we go play against them, that's just good for them. You know what I mean? Whatever they can do is going to make a lot of those players way better because of the experience that they get. And like they could start to build towards being a team like we're a team. You know what I mean? Like they have those kind of players. They have like a lot of really technically good players. A lot of their guys are two-way guys. Like they're kind of, you could look at them like Celtics juniors right now, except that their dynamism is built in the backcourt, which I just think in the modern NBA, like I'd rather have a Jayson Tatum than a Trae Young. But
right. Well, that's so they're Zach Resurgence, I'm saying this wrong. His name probably wrong, but he was the
French
number one
guy.
pick. Well, yeah, from last year. It from recent numbers, it looks like he's starting to figure it out. Like I know he had 36 the other night.
Yeah, no, he's tricky. He's a baby, though.
Him and Alex Sarr. Alex Sarr was the number 2 pick at Washington. Like he had a game the other night where he had like 24, like 5 and 7. Like so,
Yeah.
In a draft where people was like, this is gonna be the worst draft of all time, and y'all are worried about a 55th pick. So I think because those guys have been able to play right away and be in situations where they were just able to make mistakes, they may turn out to be better than what we expected eventually. But if they become good role players, then so be it. Like that happens sometimes.
The other problem too is like if you're from an Atlanta perspective, if you're going in there and you're expecting your 18-point, 10 rebound Jalen Johnson, you're not going to get that because he's going to have Kristaps Porzingis to deal with. So Porzingis has like 6 inches on that guy. So it's like he's just going to, if he gets matchups with him in like around the rim, Jesus Christ, dude, like pray, like just pray. That's all you're going to be able to do. Like he's going to be hunting that matchup and that's your center basically, right? Like they play him at the 5, right? So, I mean, we were victims of that when we had Robert Williams as our 5. Like there's just, I know he played big, but there is just a matchup situation you can create. Like we were just giving all the flowers in the world to Joel Embiid when he was healthy. Like, I mean, we loved Time Lord, but like Joel Embiid would be like, okay, come on, like, what are we doing here, right? So, we had to make a difference in that matchup. So, Porzingis comes in there, he's just gonna hunt. He's gonna hunt their front court, and I just think that's, that would be fun too. And I don't think that's the same situation if we play Orlando again. It's like at that point I'm like, I don't know. I don't want him to get beat up out there. Like, let's just limit his minutes. Let's try and get through this round without him getting fucking beat up against Orlando, as opposed to, I think he could be having a lot. I think he could be eating out there against Atlanta, to be honest with you. So that'd be fun. Yeah, that's another reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, what was fun is that you got all the way through the show, and I hope that you have gotten to this point, because that means you heard everything that we had to say. So for DK Sizzle, I'm Hollywood Rayshawn Buchanan. Until next time, we'll see you. Peace.
Everyone has heard about the U.S. space program, but what is actually going on at NASA? Get the real story in 4 minutes or less with the NASA Daily podcast from Electricast. Join astronauts and researchers as they conduct groundbreaking experiments, work on the International Space Station, and reach for the stars. NASA Daily, your cosmic update.
Electricast. Hi, I'm Sherilyn Fenn from Twin Peaks. What did you do on your last Saturday night?
Did you hear something?
Toilet paper.
There's none. Nada. The reserves have gone dry. People are hoarding it. I should have done that.
They're all out of hand sanitizer at my Target.
Mark, when did you last watch the news?
We are getting reports of forced quarantines in China, Japan, and now Italy.
You're cutting onions in half and putting them around your apartment.
Yes, exactly. It kills the COVID.
Excuse me?
Let's go. Let's go. Get in.
Vamos, rápido.
Have you ever driven one of these?
Never.
I'll drive, ladies.
I've got the keys.
Excuse me, I'm lost. I'm looking for my wife. I got turned around.
Join me, Eric Roberts, Jennifer Elise Cox, and Ed Asner for The Last Saturday Night, an Electricast podcast. You'll love it.
Electricast.